Hey guys, Julie here with Bear Cube Boutique. Thanks so much for joining us on my channel. Today I'm going to be lining a toque. Winter is upon us and obviously we're all wearing hats to stay warm. But with these hats, sometimes it causes your hair to get dry and breakage. So we want to try to avoid that. And in order to do so, I'm going to be lining this hat today with satin fabric, but you can also use silk if you would like. Silk is a little bit of a thinner fabric and it's softer than the satin, but the satin is a little bit easier to work with. So I'm going to be using the satin today, but feel free to use silk if you want to. So what I will be doing is I'm going to be cutting a piece of fabric. This is an adult toque. But if you have a child's toque, you can use smaller measurements as well. But today I'm going to be using this pink fabric here, and this piece is measured at 26 inches wide by 10 inches in length. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead, I've already cut the piece, but I'm going to go ahead and iron it. And make sure that you are using the silk or satin setting on your iron. Please don't use cotton or one of those settings because you're going to burn your fabric. Just not going to be good. So just iron it out, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold the fabric in half. So a little bit difficult because it does pull, so we want to make sure that it's even on both sides. There we go. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and iron this so that I can create myself a fold and I know where the middle is of my fabric. So as you can see here, now we've got a nice little line in the middle. And what I'm going to do as well is I'm going to create myself a little hem. And I'm going to do about a 1/4 inch fold here. And just eyeball it. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's just so that you can hem your fabric and sew it so that it's not a raw edge. There we go. Okay. All right, so back to your cutting table or whatever it is that you're using to cut your fabric. So I'm just going to go ahead and fold my fabric again and just follow that line here in the middle that you ironed. Okay. And make sure that you are putting the side where you folded here, you're ironing just at the top so that you're not cutting this piece. What we're going to want to do is cut at the bottom here, and we're going to want to kind of create two little triangles or two peaks here, and that's going to be how you sew the top of your toque so that it gathers. Okay, so nothing too super fancy or complicated, but essentially what I do is I kind of go 2.5 inches in, and then I go about let's see here, this is about 3 inches up here. Maybe I'll do, yeah. Okay, so sorry, 1, 2, 3 inches in height, and then widthwise I go 2.5. So what I do is I just use a pen. This is like an erasable pen that when you iron your fabric, it goes away. But you can just use chalk or whatever it is that you use to mark your fabric. Or a marker, it doesn't matter. You can use a regular marker too because you're not going to see this. Okay, and then on the other side, 2.5. And then we're going to go to boat. Okay, so realign and place. Okay, so what you're going to do is just connect your middle there to your peak. So don't worry about your bottom fabric if it moves or whatever, because right now you're just marking the top piece. You can rearrange the bottom fabric when you're ready to cut. Okay, there we go. So now, as I mentioned, we're just going to want to rearrange your fabric, make sure it's aligning properly with the bottom. You can pin it if you want. I don't really care to. It doesn't really need to be that perfect, to be honest. It's just to line your toque. So you want it to fit, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, so I just like to take my rotary cutter to cut the edges. There you go. And then I take my scissors to do the middle, just because I find that sometimes I don't get the tip with my cutter. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're just going to go ahead and sew this seam here. So like I said, this is going to be on the outside of your toque, so you want to make sure that you're just sewing this so that it doesn't fray. And then what you're going to want to do is sew the two edges together, so it kind of makes like a circle, like so. All right. The other thing that I want to mention is I'm using just a regular stitch for the bottom, and then when I do stitch the lining to the toque, I use a gathering stitch. So again, this doesn't need to be perfect. I'm using a 1/4 inch seam here. Oh. And back stitch. All right, so there you have it. You've got yourself a nice seam there. And as I mentioned, show you here, so your raw edge, we're gonna just put and just go further here. Okay, so here's your fabric. There's your edge that you just finished sewing, and then what you're gonna do is you're just going to fold it in half. You're gonna put these two pieces together here, and then you're going to sew down here. You're going to sew up this line, leave these two pieces alone, and then you're going to sew up this line as well. Again, 1/4 inch inseam, and back to the sewing machine. What you're going to do is you're actually going to pull your fabric Let me just go back to my cutting table so you guys can see. Okay. So what you have left is these two openings here. What you're going to do is just pull that up, and you're going to sew this piece here, like so, and then this piece here. So what it's going to do is give you that point that you're going to use as the top piece here for inside your toque. And then you've got your edge here that you've sewn for the bottom. All right, so back to the sewing machine. Fold it inside out. All right, so now you see that nice shiny inside, and then you folded top. There you have it. So next up, you're going to grab your toque. You're going to take the center piece of the lining up here. Make sure you turn it inside out. Sorry, turn it back inside out. This inside piece here, you're going to take the peak and you're going to line it up with the peak of your toque. So just do that. Go ahead and flip your toque inside out. There we go. Okay, and then you're going to take the piece here and line it up with this one. Just a needle and thread, and what I do is I'm using black for this, and then what I do is I just sew or grab a piece from here and into the toque, throwing it in here, and then it's going to bring my I do this probably about 5 times or so, just to make sure that it's really grabbing in. Have it. The inside of the toque is, or the inside of the lining is sewn to the toque. And then what I'm going to do is just go ahead and flip the lining. Okay, so there you go. This is the lining flipped onto the back of the toque. So in this case, the person that I'm doing this for, they like to flip their toque. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab this and flip it all inside out. This. Sorry, again, I'm doing this with one hand. All right, and then she folds the toque. So I'm going to just fold it, and then I'm going to pin the fabric to the edge of the toque like so. And I'm going to do that all around. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my bobbin thread to black, and then my top thread is going to be this pink here that I have. So that way when I'm sewing around the edge here, you're going to see the pink thread on top, and then you're not going to see the thread because it's actually going to be under the fold here, but regardless, it's going to be black along here. So it's not going to look awkward, or, you know, even if she chooses not to fold it, you might see a slight thread hem here, but it's going to be in black, so it's not going to be so noticeable. So I'm going to go ahead and pin the inside of the lining and give it a sew. As I mentioned, for the inside of the lining, I do use a gathering stitch. So on my Baby Lock Brilliant, which is what I use, it's a number 7. It's a longer stitch so that I can gather the fabric, because the satin is going to be, there's more fabric and it's not stretchy. Satin is not very stretchy. There's really not much give to it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and we'll be right back. The other thing that I just want to mention before I go ahead and sew this is you've got your seam here for your lining. If your toque happens to have a seam, try to line those up so that it's nice and clean. My toque doesn't. In this case, it's just, you know, round. It doesn't have any seam. So I would typically line this up if your toque did have a seam. All right, guys, so there you have it. You've got your seam done here on the inside, nice and stitched. And as I mentioned, if you unfold the toque, you don't see much at all, if anything, because I put the black thread on my bobbin. And this is the inside, and I'm not going to put it on, but because it is for somebody, but basically once you put it on, you're not even going to see a thing, but your hair's going to be protected, which is nice. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.